Right now, I want to invite and to introduce our next speaker, Rajat Garg from India, MCC coach, director at ICF Global Board, mentor coach, director of the company Coach to Transformation, Rajat Garg. Rajat will tell us about cross-culture coaching with the International Coach Federation, ICF. Hello, Rajat.
Hi, Maria. Thank you so much. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you, Rajat.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just got surprised that am I being heard or not? Sure. Thank you so much, Dimitri. Thank you so much, Maria, for doing this. I'm actually humbled by your invitation to the conference, and I'm wishing here as well, best of luck with the entire thing, and look forward to many more years of this conference. So congratulations to you both. Okay. I'll just share my deck. So my name is Rajat Garg. I'm an MCC coach. I come from a corporate background of IT industry, almost 14 years of that, and then shifted into coaching and started my own organization. Beyond coaching, I work a lot with ICF over the years, including founding a chapter in India for ICF, I'm an ICF assessor. I am also worked on the nomination committee, then the ethics committee of ICF, and currently I am the 2018 ICF Global Board Director with them. And one of the roles that we have as part of the Global Board Director role is to be an ambassador of ICF wherever we can be and take ICF as far as possible and to help you guys and support everybody, all the coaches out there in terms of figuring it out how to work with ICF. So this is an interesting topic that Dimitri gave me in terms of what does ICF do to create an environment where cultures, coaching is spread across cultures, and how is ICF supporting them in that journey. To give a big brief, most of you will know ICF, but to give you just an idea of what ICF is, while you're reading, it's the pioneer. It's one of the pioneers in the professional development of coaches, and they develop the core competencies for coaching, and they have a very structured format of credentialing and accreditation available throughout the globe. ICF has around 30,000 members, actually more than 30,000 now, and I think it's more than 13 countries now. And out of that, 20,000 are ICF credential holders. There are 130 plus chapters in 70 plus countries. That's an amazing reach, and I think a lot of it happened in the last 10 to 12 years with ICF. Basic requirement for ICF is that you have to be an ICF member to be part of it. You don't need to have a credential for ICF. And are you able to hear me fine?
Yes, Rajat. Yes. Yes.
Because I just saw a comment saying my sound. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, and interestingly and very importantly as well, ICF is sort of a leader in terms of ethics in coaching. So while there is a code of ethics in terms of individual members, there's also an ethics code for the accredited schools as well out there. So it's not, and even the leaders at the chapter level. So there have been codes created which not just the members have to adhere to, but the coach training schools have to adhere to, as well as the chapter leaders have to adhere to. And that's something which is very, very important in the world today. I come from India. I live in Mumbai in India, and India is a growing market. It's like it's bubbling as of now in terms of the coaching industry itself. And for a market which is currently figuring it out in terms of coaching, ethics is a very important piece. So one of the things that I did in India was to create a community of practice on ethics for India. And we, every month we have a session on ethics and we talk awareness of ethics around that, right? So how does ICF imbibe cultural diversity in the fabric of the organization itself? There are various pieces of ICF, and I would take you through each piece one by one in terms of how it's done within each piece in terms of cultural diversity. So there are various boards and committees with ICF, plus the chapter committees and leaders across the globe, plus the events that ICF does. There is a concept of reciprocal peer coaching that happens. The coach performance assessment is done in multiple languages. There are 3 different layers to that as well. The awards that ICF has and the industry research that ICF is into. Let's go into each one of them. The global board and the committees like the nomination committee or the independent review board, which is the ethics committee as well. And beyond that, there are other financial committees here and there, and the community of practice. There are 16 countries represented across these boards and committees at ICF. And it's not just a particular concentration of a particular country, it spans around. And a lot of change has been seen in the last 5 to 6 years in terms of movement of a lot more people coming into ICF from a global perspective from different cultures. And I'll come to it in terms of how it works between us when we come from different cultures as part of different committees. I have had different committees experience as well. As I said, there are 132 chapters in ICF in more than 70 countries. Imagine the kind of cultural diversity that we have, right? You go everywhere today, you will find an ICF chapter. Recently, I was in the Middle East region, and all the board members, had a session being done. They sort of reached out to every country within that region, and one board member was available to each region, and we did like a 7-day journey across them. And there was so much excitement, so much diversity within the chapter itself, right? If you look at purely at Middle East, there's a lot more expat community there from various countries. And the coaching community there was formed of all these people and not just the citizens per se of Middle East. Hence why we sort of call chapters as islands of welcome for any kind of person coming into coaching from any kind of background. So in India, if we have an American, who's residing here, the chapter acts as a welcoming point for that person to integrate into the culture of India, into the ICF hold as well. And there's a lot of opportunities to network with the peers. And I've seen amazing kind of experiences for people, right? I've done multiple chapter events, not just in India, but outside India as well. And everywhere you go, you see so much energy, right? The chapters also provide you with virtual and face-to-face education offerings, as well as help the communities develop and flourish, right? So I would engage each of you to get into the chapter of ICF at some point. It's an invitation, not an ask, but it's an invitation that I'm extending. Reach out to your ICF chapter in Russia, and there's so much happening at each level there, right? Stop me if you have any questions that I can answer. I'm happy to answer them immediately as well, instead of waiting for the last. So you can put it in the chat box, and Maria or Dimitri can let me know if there are, for the particular slide, there's a question that needs to be answered first. Let's move on. Events. So ICF and the chapters included hold a lot of events, like what Dimitri is doing in terms of doing an international coaching conference. There's similar conferences that the chapters across the globe create for members to be part of. And again, they bring in a lot of different kind of speakers, and the speakers bring in that cultural diversity as well. So it's what Dimitri is doing is amazing in terms of creating that same atmosphere in Russia as well, and bringing in speakers from across the world and providing you that cultural, diversity and understanding of how. So I won't imagine you seeing me in any other kind of forum if it had not been for Dimitri or the chapters doing these kind of conferences or events, right? We would never have met like this in the past. So ICF, okay. So I got a question here, what a coach should do to become a part of the chapter. All you need to do, depending on you should reach out to the ICF Russia chapter. I'm assuming Dimitri can help you as well with that. All you need to do is you need to be part of the global membership of ICF, and you can just register depending on the pricing points of the chapter. Typically, some chapters have free, some chapters charge for their events, etc. So reach out to the ICF chapter president. There's a leadership there. You can actually look at the website of ICF, coachfederation.org, and it will tell you who's the chapter president in Russia, and you can reach out to the committee there. Right. What do you consider the main challenge for cross-cultural coaching? So Vugard, I think the main challenge with the cross-cultural coaching is the ability to understand the language that each person speaks. Let's say I'm speaking to you, right? And I use words which are very normal for me to speak from an Indian context perspective. I might frame my question, even my knowledge of English, the knowledge of English grammar itself, the way I create the questions in coaching. And if I'm working with a client who doesn't have English as it's not their main medium, it's important to understand how will they take my question and understand my question as a coach in that moment, and how will they answer it back, and what do I understand of it from there. So I did an event for ICF Ukraine chapter, and there was a translator involved in that. Thankfully, I got to coach somebody in English, but the intent was because coaching is something which is, you need to understand the person deeply. And if I don't understand their words as a coach, it becomes difficult to coach them, right? The cultural piece is also around saying, what are my physical boundaries? What are my boundaries, even in terms of mental boundaries, right? So in some countries, respect is default to a senior person, to an elder person. How would they see me, who might be younger than them, and coaching them and challenging them in that moment? And they might consider me, hey, in my culture, you don't talk to me like this, right? In different, the physical boundaries piece, wherein, if you, again, take an example of India, you can't just, go ahead and, touch a woman on the shoulder like this, right? You can't just put your hand on the shoulder of a woman as a friend would do, right? So you have to be careful what's your boundary in terms of your client, so that your client is crying and you can't just get up and hug them in that moment. So Marina, a minimum of 20 certified coaches are needed to open a chapter for ICF. So again, I think I'll leave my email ID with you guys at the end, and I can answer these nuances around the how-tos of ICF at the end. And you can write into me, and I'll help you figure it out with those kind of logistical answers of how to reach, how to create a chapter, and all the kind of stuff. I'll connect you with somebody in ICF as well for that too. Well, Vugar, I hope I answered your question to some extent, and I'll move on as well. So, okay. So if you want to engage culturally across ICF in terms of reaching out to different kind of coaches, I would actually invite you to attend these kind of events that happen across the globe. There's a Global Leaders Forum that ICF does, which is responsible for basically getting all the chapter leaders together from across the countries and getting to know what's happening at the chapter level and the regional level and the cultural level for those leaders. And we get a sort of sense of what's happening across coaching industry across the globe from those leaders. There's ICF Converse that happens every 2 years. The next one will be in 2019. It's a global event again. You can come in anytime, like a normal participant, and there are topics that are wonderful, and there's so much of networking from different cultures that happen. I just told you about our board meetings and visits to local regional events. So we try to do our board meetings in a particular region and try to cover, as board members, we try to one by one cover different, local cities and regions within that area. So, like I covered Dubai and Kuwait when we went to Middle East, when we had our board meeting there, and a different board member covered Lebanon and some other areas, right? There is community of practice that exists in ICF. Again, invitation to join them. These are specific communities of practice. There's a community of practice on ethics. There's a community of practice on credentialing, on coaching, on how to work with social sector in coaching. So there are various kind of community of practice that you can become a member of and engage with people from across the globe in that, right? So from business development, there's business development series wherein it can help you with terms of how do you develop your business. So this is a virtual platform wherein you can get to learn on how do you develop your business as a coach itself. ICF Advanced is more around what's new in coaching, what's going to happen next in coaching. Again, it's a conference that happens and you can attend this conference. And again, global people come to this conference from different cultures. What are the most common customer requests in different countries? But I'm assuming when you say customer requests, Svetlana, I'm assuming it's the goals that they're looking for in terms of what to work on in coaching. So there is a distinction that we have found. So I have done a research on coaching, and there's a distinction that we have found from what the goals are from if the coaching is being offered within an organization versus an individual come to you for coaching, right? The goals will be very different. But the most common ones that we hear from a corporate angle is the performance piece, wherein the client needs or the coachee needs to have performance-based coaching done, and the coach needs to work with the client. That's the most common one. The second most common one is the succession planning thing, right? Wherein the client needs to grow up for a certain level, and the coach is being asked to help in the growth of that person. But the typical goals that you will see in corporates, the way they start is mostly very professional kind of goals, right? Performance management, succession planning, collaboration, relationship management with team player, and all the kind of words that happen, right? But we as coaches know that it's much more when we actually start coaching and we go deeper into coaching from there, right? It gets down to biases and emotions and feelings and whatnot, right? But the way coaching is sort of sold within companies is to ensure that it's termed professionally, while the underlying problems might be completely different, which, once solved, will take care of this as well. When individuals come to you for coaching across cultures, very interestingly, a Saudi participant, coachee came to me and thinking that, or believing that we have similar cultures as an Indian, and he was from Saudi, and he wanted to get coached. He was a new CEO and he needed coaching for himself because he wanted to ensure that he's successful as a CEO, right? At an emotional level, we are all the same. If you look at Paul Ekman's research and his work around emotions and feelings and all that stuff, you will find that at an emotional level, at a feeling level, we are all humans. But how we perceive, how we have, what's happened to us from a nurture and a nature perspective makes our mind map different. The way we think, the kind of belief system that we create is what changes from one person to another, right? So hence, coaching is important because we work at the belief system level, the value systems level of people. I've gone too much into detail of how the customer requests are from different countries, but yes, so the common ones are typically professional development, succession planning that you hear across the globe. Okay, let's see, questions. Yes, Marina, the info is available on ICF website. Yes. Okay. This is a very, I love this concept. ICF started this concept of reciprocal peer coaching program at different levels. So there are different rounds that they do within this. They have a PCC round, they have an MCC round in that, and ACC round as well, I think. What they do is they send out requests and saying, there's a round of peer coaching that we are planning. If you want to nominate yourself for that round, you can register. It's a very nominal fee of 50 USD. And you can register yourself. What happens is you will get a coach. You can choose that, do you want a global coach or do you want a coach in the same time zone, same culture? You can choose those pieces. But if you were to choose a global, different culture kind of coach, they will provide you with one coach who will coach you. And they'll provide you with one coachee who's again a coach, but that person is somebody you will coach, and you get 6 sessions each with them, right? So you're getting coached for 6 sessions and you get to coach for 6 sessions, and you get to interact with 2 coaches who are from very different parts of the world, right? And that's where I met my MCC partner for my MCC journey as part of the MCC peer coaching round that happened, right? And I found, so the person I was coaching in that was from US, and we sort of, and while we were talking it out and discussing and doing our coaching sessions, we figured out, hey, both of us want to reach towards MCC. And so we said, why not? Let's work together. So we worked together for the rest of the year after that and kept on helping each other to reach MCCs. And that's how I reached MCC, because I get to work with a very different cultural perspective with that person. And I got to improve my coaching, not just from a very cultural piece, but from somebody who looks at it from a very different angle, who has been grown into a very different kind of environment in coaching. And the way they have been taught is different. The way I have been taught is different. And that helps. Just connecting the dot helps from both sides, right? So I would, again, it's a brilliant program. Next time the round happens, do get into it, and you will love the experience, I'm very sure. Coming to how ICF evaluates a coach, there are 3 different pieces that happen for evaluation. One is the coach knowledge assessment, which is an online exam. The online exam is something that every coach has to pass before they get a credential from ICF. And the current assessment is available in 18 different languages, including Russian, right? So that's another way of ICF showcasing that we are interested in bringing coaching to you in your language, right? And there are more languages that are being made available soon. ICF is working on that, and because when you try to answer how you understand the question, it comes back to that, and how you want to answer that question, language is very important. So having the CKA or the coach knowledge assessment in your language makes a lot of difference how you reply to answers, right? It makes a lot of difference what kind of percentages, pass percentages you will get there in the assessment, right? The PCC markers. ICF has something called markers, which are basically helping you to see, where am I in terms of my competencies of a coach, right? So they've created something called PCC markers, where you can actually see, hey, within agreement, these are some of the markers that I should look for me to be competent at and be seen as a PCC level itself, right? The markers themselves are available in 5 different languages, French, German, Spanish, and Swedish. And again, there is work happening in terms of creating more such languages out there for these markers. Just check on the chat. What do I have? Okay. What is a performance evaluation? It's basically a recording that is sent to ICF to be assessed, wherein the assessors of ICF listen to that recording and assess you. And ICF then determines what level of competency are you at this point of time. This is part of the credentialing requirements at ICF. And currently, you can see the amount of languages that is available that you can send these recordings in. And we have assessors who can actually review these recordings within that language, right? There's always that if your language is not listed here, you can always submit it in English. But so if you see at PCC level, there's Russian as well out there, and I'm sure there's work happening on getting more and more assessors who can work at different languages and provide support from an assessment perspective to different languages. So that's something which is a continuous process, and we are training new assessors all the time in that. ICF awards. ICF has a couple of awards. The most prestigious among them will be the Prism Award. which is a global award given to one organization across the globe for them imbibing coaching as a culture within their organization, right? So I was one of the judges as part of the Prism Award, as one of the panels of the judges once, and we got almost like 50, 60 applications from across the globe, from various kind of organizations, both from corporates, NGOs, universities, and all kind of people who have introduced coaching within their organization and want to go deeper and have gone deeper into coaching within their organization, right? So again, you see so much diversity coming in from a judge panel perspective, the cultural nuances that we bring into the judging panel, the way we look at applications and the kind of applications coming from all across the globe, right? There are some ICF chapters who have their own awards available at their level, and the local, regional, the global piece helps them create those chapter level awards, and you can have your, even ICF Russia can have its own award for the region itself, for the corporates or NGOs. ICF has also introduced 2 new awards this year for a young coach, the 40 coach, as well as somebody who's like a very expert coach, right? So somebody who has made a difference to coaching big time. So there are 2 more awards that have been introduced, and again, you can go and look at ICF website for those awards and see if you fall under them and should apply for them. And again, the panel of those judges will again represent very cultural and geographical diversity as well. I'm conscious of time. Got 15 minutes more left. ICF Industry Research. Again, ICF invests a lot. I'm using ICF so much. I love ICF. It almost feels family to me. So there's a bunch of industry research that keeps happening from ICF. The 2 have been highlighted here are the Global Consumer Awareness Study as to how people are perceiving coaching, and how people are perceiving ICF as well from a coaching perspective. And then there is a global coaching study that happens every year, and the results come out from there in terms of what's happening in the coaching world, right? How to create coaching culture in organizations and what's happening at that level as well. So there's a bunch of research that's there, and again available on the ICF website. Sorry, for you to download and use. Okay. Dear, in your opinion, what are the biggest challenges for ICF Global in 2018, particularly in the CIS region? So one of the, from a perspective of so one of the pieces that we are seeing and things that we continuously work on, it's not something that we have forgotten. It happens continuously. But I think one of the pieces that we want to do is bring the chapters closer to each other across 2018, right? We want to have more interaction between chapters and see how we can leverage between the chapters and help, as you said, the CIS region, how within the CIS region, what can we do from a different chapter perspective, as well as from, you talk to ICF India chapter, ICF Singapore chapter, how can we build that bridge there? So that's one big piece that we want to work on this year. The other piece is on how to improve on our credentialing process, right? How to make it better, how to make it something which is, when people hear the word ICF, associate with excellence, and not just coaches, but the clients as well. I think one of them, so what comes out from there is the fact that we need to reach out to as ICF, to the potential clients out there, the people who are consuming coaching as well. And they should see ICF as one brand where by default, if ICF has given a credential to some coach, it means the coach is excellent. They should be able to pick that coach just knowing that the coach has got a credential from ICF, right? So we want to reach out and do all that in the coming year as well. That's the next challenge. But when we talk particular challenge, particular regions, I would like to hear from you back, and that's one of my role, to hear back from different regions saying, hey, what are challenges you are facing and how can we help you in that? Because unless we hear from people, we don't get to know what to do about it. So we will soon have the consumer awareness data coming into us, as a board, which is just done, just finished, and the data is just getting sliced and diced, and we'll get to see what people are thinking across regions, including the CIS region as well. I would have a better answer for you, Zanara, at that time. And again, happy to answer it at that moment as well. Will that be okay? Okay. What new coaching technologies have begun to apply? I think I see a lot more applications which are on tracking of coaching engagements. I see a splurge or a barrage of those applications that are coming in terms of coaches creating applications to, how to engage other coaches with them, and how to provide coaching services to clients as well. And then how do you track both the project management piece purely from a program management as well as the impact management, right? So there are a bunch of those applications that are getting created. The other application I'm seeing is more in terms of how to introduce AI into coaching. There is a sense of, at the end, how, does a coach really have a role when AI comes in? I do believe as of now, yes. So for some, I think another 10 years, our jobs are safe from a robo. But that's something a lot of people are investing in terms of how does at least some basic level interaction can happen with the AI piece. And then the next step is, let's say I am coaching somebody at human to human interaction. How can I integrate the kind of notes that I take, and how can, that notes can be part of a big data exercise, so that I don't have to look through all my notes to figure out within a single session, what's the past data that I have about this client and what's been happening with this client. It's like some, data that is popped up through your big data exercise, and like just points out to you saying, your client is here as of now based on what I've been seeing as a, as a pattern. So the big data patterns are another piece that's emerging in how you take notes, how you take data out of your notes as well, right? The third piece that is emerging, but not from a coaching perspective, but from from a coaching. Okay, Svetlana's question is very interesting. Yeah, so I'm answering the question based on what I'm seeing here. As even in the Q&A piece, I can't afford to type while I'm talking. That would take just too much time. So the another technology that is coming up is the translation services, right? So as of now, there are a lot of good translation services from a typing perspective when you are able to type and change that. But live translation when you're talking to somebody, right? That's something that is going to come up very soon, right? So wherein you're speaking in Russian, I'm speaking in English, and we both understand. You hear me in Russian, and I hear you in English back. So that technology is something that will be coming up, and there's a lot of work happening on that as of now, which will, I think, change the paradigm of coaching soon, right? I'm seeing, do you believe that coaching can solve any problem? Svetlana, I think there's enough research on that. Coaching has been able to solve, and I've worked with a lot of clients till now. And, the best example is me. Coaching has worked for me. It solved a lot of problems for me. Just going to the coach training itself solved a lot of issues for me. I'm an introvert. I never did a business in life before that. And there was a bunch of things happening at the personal level at that time. And just being part of a coach training program changed the entire process. And whenever I am training people in coaching, the one thing that we hear back again and again is the fact how we transform them as people. And credentialing just becomes a piece to it, just something that just happens to them. So I've seen enough changes, and there's enough research to showcase that coaching works. And I'm not saying that coaching is the only thing that works. We are humans. We need different things at different points of time in life, and we might need different ways of solving our problem. Sometimes the problem can simply be solved by talking to a friend. Sometimes it can be solved by therapy, sometimes by a mentor, and sometimes by coaching, right? So interesting question in the field of coaching. And I love that saying, does coaching work? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Coming back to research, we've got 6 more minutes on this. So coming back to research, what happens to the research is we slice and dice from a regional perspective as well after that. So you can actually download research based on your region and see data from your region perspective as well, right? So that helps you see what your region is doing, what other regions are doing. For me, if I'm looking at my own coach business to grow in different countries, for me, that data is very interesting to see from saying, hey, how's Russia doing in terms of coaching as of now? And would I want to go to Russia and do coaching there? And would I want to expand there? So if you're looking at expanding your business, this data is very interesting for you, right? So I had planned for my experiences at this point of time, but I think I've been sharing them with you all throughout. And one thing that I wanted to share with you is the kind of experience that I've had with working in committees with ICF, including the current board, right? We come from so much global and different cultures, perspectives. So when you talk at the board level or in these committees, including specifically in the IRB, which is the ethics committee, and we are looking at the code of ethics that ICF has created. So when we read the code of ethics, one exercise that we do every time is saying, hey, Rajat, in your Indian culture, how would an Indian read this line? How would they understand this language from their perspective? How would they see this language at all when you're reading this? And we have people from various countries on that committee who give their perspectives to saying, hey, a Malaysian would think like this. A Romanian will think like this around the same word. It's the same word that's written there, but it's just the way of the interpretation of that word that will change from different culture to culture. And that data is continued to be collated as part of an exercise. And the next time the code is reviewed, that data is provided to the code review team. And they try to figure out saying, how can I use a language which is understood across the globe? And how do I then make people aware of this language in terms of dispensing this awareness around code in different languages and saying, how do you understand this, right? So that kind of perspective I cannot get if I were to be part of just India, right? I get these experiences when I'm sitting there working with different coaches from different countries, and I get to hear so many things, so much work that is happening from different cultures, including how regulation is coming up in coaching. Different countries are looking at regulation differently, and how are we going to get impacted by the regulation, right?
Rajat,
okay.
We have just 3 minutes till the end. And there is one question, I guess you didn't answer it yet. Can you tell any case that you met problem in cross-culture coaching, and how did you decide it?
Sure. I'm almost done with my slide anyways. Thank you for that. So I'm just going to click. There are some resources that can stay behind that you can look at. These are all the links, right? There are more links. I think Dimitri has the links and can share the links with the participants as well. So cases where I met problems in cross-cultural coaching. So I was, okay, let me pick up one example, right? So I was coaching somebody in Malaysia at that time. And there is, while the Malaysian culture is very near to us from an Indian perspective, right? There's a lot more similarities there, but it's the dissimilarity in terms of the masculinity of that culture is much more, the masculine nature of that culture is higher than the Indian masculine nature, right? We are slightly more diverse in terms of masculine and feminine culture, wherein that culture is highly masculine, right? If you look at that culture itself. So they are not used to speaking on feelings. They're not, the men there in that culture are not, they don't know how to talk feelings, really, right? If you were to ask them a feeling question, they will simply skip that question. right? And they'll start answering something else altogether in that moment, right? So, and that happened multiple times when I started coaching that person. And initially, being a coach, I said, okay, I'm figuring out my boundaries. How much to push this person to give me the feelings of this person. And at some point, I had to have a chat with that person saying, I understand the cultural difference. Okay. I understand that the way, and it came as a coaching dialogue. I didn't go ahead and say, you are masculine and you don't know how to express feelings. It was more a coaching process as well, saying, okay, this is how coaching works and this is who you are. And if you want to get your impact in this coaching, this piece is important. Let's work out how can we reach that piece as well, right? And over time, it took some time. It didn't solve that immediately. It took some time. At one point in coaching, maybe around third session, that person actually broke down in the session. And that was the first time ever he broke down. And that just changed the entire coaching for us after that. I know time is up. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rajat. It was a very interesting presentation. If you got more questions, we will send it to you.
Yes.
A lot.